Turn to page IP20 today to set up your ECQs. Begin with writing a title called Periodic Table ECQs. This goes on page IP20, that's the right-hand side. You'll make a T-chart by splitting your paper in half and titling the left side questions and the right side for your answers. At this time, if you have a page tab, go ahead and stick a page tab on top so that you can set your new ECQ section for your science notebook. These are your ECQ questions. We have 3 this time. Please go ahead and pause the video so you can write down these 3 questions. Remember to leave space between each one. Now turn to page IP21, that's the right-hand side on the next page. Title this the periodic table. You do not have to draw this picture, but at this time you should already have a periodic table that's colored and taped to the inside front cover of your science notebook. Make sure in your color that you've labeled which color stands for metals. Okay, so on my periodic table, all the yellow ones stood for metals, the purple ones stood for metalloids, and the green for nonmetals. For your nonmetals, you have one little hydrogen here, and the rest on the right-hand side are nonmetals. Again, this should be colored on your periodic table. Write down your essential question. How do we calculate the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons in an atom? Pause the video if you need to. Now go to your periodic table on the inside front cover of your science notebook. Before you start your notes, you'll have to label a few things. Periods go across from left to right, and there are actually 7 periods total on your periodic table. Please label them here. Everything across here is period 1. As you can see, there's only 2 elements on period 1, hydrogen and helium. Period 2 starts with lithium and goes all the way across to neon. Period 3 starts at sodium and ends at argon. Period 4 at potassium and goes all the way across the big chunk of the periodic table until it ends at krypton. And so on. Make sure you label your periods. And just like reading your school schedule, periods go from left to right. Down here at the bottom, period 6 continues in this section, and period 7 continues down here, which we call the actinide series, because it continues right here from actinide. The one above on period 6 begins with the lanthanide series, because it starts right there. Okay, so these are hidden in between here. When you've labeled the periods, go ahead and be ready to label the next part. Your groups go down from top to bottom, and there are 18 groups total. Label your groups, there's lots of them. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4, all the way to Group 18, and these go straight from top to bottom. To distinguish from periods, you might want to write a G for these numbers, like G1, G2, G3, G4, all the way to G18. So your groups, for example, group 1 is hydrogen, and it goes all the way down to francium. Group 2 starts at beryllium and goes down to radium, all the way until you get to group 18, which starts with helium and ends all the way down here at UUO. Just a little side note, if you're wondering about these UUU elements at the bottom, these letters, for example, UUB, ununumbium, actually stands for 112 in Latin. These elements are not named, so they just use the Latin numbers for them. It's basically saying number 112, number 113, and so on. Alright, so for example, how we use a periodic table is if I ask you to find an element in period 5, group 11, you would go to period 5 all the way across until you get to group 11 right here, and that would be capital A, lowercase g, number 47. which if you look carefully, that represents silver. Okay. If I ask you to find an element in period 4, group 2, that would be period 4, group 2. That's calcium, number 20. And if I ask you to find an element in period 3, group 17, 3, 17, that would be chlorine. You should be able to use the periodic table just like a map. So if I ask you to find an element, you should be able to find them. Okay. All right, now we'll officially begin our Cornell notes and continue. Back on page 21. Okay, first part of our notes. Number 1, atomic number. This is a key word. The atomic number tells the number of protons. B, each element has its own atomic number. And C, an example. Helium has an atomic number of 2. So it has 2 protons. So the atomic number tells you the number of protons. Draw and label this square and highlight where the atomic number is found. This is where the atomic number is found. 2. That means there's 2 protons. Helium, He, capital H, lowercase e. Be careful with your capitals and lowercases. This is a symbol. And 4.003 stands for the atomic mass in AMU. Atomic mass represents how heavy that element is. Pause and write if you need. Continuing with the atomic number, letter D. In a neutral atom, the number of protons equal the number of electrons. This is an important fact you probably want to highlight later in a different color. So for example, if there were 6 protons inside, and as we cannot see them all, but they're hidden in there, then there should be an equal number of electrons. There should be 6 electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You do not have to draw this because I did not write to draw them. But it's important to show you that the number of protons equals the number of electrons. Atomic mass. A, tells the number of protons and neutrons. This is a new word and it has a different meaning than the atomic number. Mass represents how heavy it is, so protons and neutrons make up the mass of it because it's very dense in the nucleus. Okay. B, it always is rounded to a whole number. And C, to find the number of neutrons, you would want to subtract atomic mass minus the atomic number. For example, helium has an atomic mass of 4 and an atomic number of 2. 4 minus 2 equals 2, so helium has 2 neutrons. So remember, you use the atomic mass, sorry, I just went back, to calculate the number of neutrons by subtracting. Okay. Draw and label this again, and highlight now where the atomic mass is found. Okay. So again, you take the bottom number, which is larger, minus the smaller top number. This is rounded to a 4 minus 2. So you have 2 neutrons, and that's how you calculate the number of neutrons. E, isotopes. Isotopes are Isotopes are when an atom of the same element that has a different number of neutrons than expected. So we just calculate the number of neutrons, but sometimes you might get something weird. So we call those isotopes. Draw and label in your notes isotopes of hydrogen. There are 3. The first one is called protium. It has 1 proton, and this is a normal hydrogen atom, and 1 electron. Okay, because they're the same number. But there's no neutrons here. Okay, nothing here. The second one is called deuterium. That's when you have 1 extra neutron. So you have a proton and electron like normal, but you have an extra neutron sitting in the middle. Okay, so it's a little heavier, because remember the middle is very dense and heavy, and the electrons are tiny and don't weigh very much. Tritium is the third one, and there's 2 extra neutrons. As you can see here, 1 proton, 2 extra little neutrons. It's a little heavier because you have some more, right, neutrons. At the end of this, go back and create 2 quick questions for your notes. Please use the following: compare, name, state, analyze, or how. Do not use any what questions and only choose to use each of these one time. Now, go back to the top of your notes and create a key for your highlighters. You should highlight vocabulary words in one color, definitions in another color, and facts in a different color. If you don't have highlighters, you may use some color pencils. They work just as fine. But now go back, pause this video to go back through your notes and highlight vocabulary, definitions, and facts. Reread what you wrote. At the end of your notes, you'll find out the 3 vocabulary words that we have and write them down on the bottom left corner. For your summary, answer the essential question in 3 to 5 sentences. Remember, your essential question was asking how do we calculate the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. So explain how to calculate each one in your sentences and you'd be done. Remember to number and highlight the sentences that you use for your summary. And when you're done, that's it for your notes. Have a great day.